So, Ivanka Trump just got hit with a federal grand jury subpoena. And we're not talking about some routine paperwork here. We're talking about the kind of legal summons that sends shivers down the spine of anyone who's ever sat in a courtroom. Ivanka Trump, who spent years at her father's right hand, who was a senior White House advisor with security clearance and access to the nation's most sensitive secrets, is now being called to testify under oath in front of a federal grand jury investigating her father's handling of classified documents and potential obstruction of justice. It's honestly hard to believe we've reached this point. For years, Ivanka positioned herself as the reasonable one, the polished professional who could smooth over her father's rougher edges. She was the one who sat in on meetings with world leaders, who had an office steps away from the Oval Office, who helped shape policy decisions affecting millions of Americans. But guess what? Federal prosecutors apparently believe she has critical information about what really happened with those boxes of classified documents at Mar-a-Lago, and they're not taking no for an answer. This isn't just about another legal headache for the Trump family. We're talking about a sitting former president's daughter being compelled to testify about potential crimes committed by her own father. This is the kind of family-splitting legal drama that tears apart dynasties and creates rifts that never heal. And trust me, the walls are closing in faster than anyone in Trump's inner circle wants to admit. Let me fill you in on what's been happening behind closed doors and why this grand jury subpoena might be the most significant development yet in the ongoing federal investigation into Donald Trump's conduct after leaving the White House. So, Ivanka Trump became one of the most powerful advisors in modern White House history when her father took office back in January 2017. She wasn't just the president's daughter showing up for photo ops. She had an official title, Senior Advisor to the President, along with top-secret security clearance that gave her access to the nation's most closely guarded secrets. She sat in the Situation Room during national security briefings. She traveled abroad representing American interests. She was, by every measure, one of the most influential voices in her father's administration. From the beginning, Ivanka cultivated this image of being the moderating force in the White House. Whether it was pushing for family leave policies, advocating for workforce development programs, or supposedly tempering some of her father's more extreme impulses, she really cemented herself as the acceptable face of the Trump presidency. Major media outlets treated her as a serious policymaker. Foreign leaders courted her favor. She built a brand around being thoughtful, measured, and professional. But here's where things get interesting. When Trump lost the 2020 election and his term ended in January 2021, Ivanka was right there during the chaotic final days. She witnessed the frantic packing of the White House. She saw the boxes being loaded up and shipped down to Mar-a-Lago. She was present during countless conversations about what documents could be taken, what had to stay, and what the rules actually were about presidential records. According to multiple reports from Politico and the New York Times, Ivanka had knowledge of the document handling process that federal investigators now believe is crucial to their case. We're now 18 months into a federal investigation that has shaken the foundations of American political norms. Classified documents containing some of the nation's most sensitive intelligence are sitting in a country club storage room. National security officials are scrambling to assess what damage may have been done. Foreign intelligence services are trying to figure out what secrets Trump may have exposed. This mess is unfolding because Trump and the National Archives were at a standstill over his refusal to return presidential records that legally belong to the federal government, not to him personally. And guess who was in the middle of it all during those final White House days? Yep, Ivanka Trump. She is supposed to be enjoying her post-White House life in Miami with her husband Jared Kushner and their 3 children. But here's the kicker. Federal prosecutors aren't interested in her new life as a private citizen. They want to know what she saw, what she heard, and what she knew about her father's handling of those classified documents. They want to know if she witnessed any attempts to hide documents from federal investigators, if she heard conversations about obstructing the government's efforts to retrieve those materials, and whether she has information that could prove criminal intent. And before we go any further, let's be real for a second. This puts Ivanka in an absolutely impossible position that no child should ever face. She's being asked to choose between protecting her father and telling the truth to federal prosecutors who have the power to charge her with perjury if she lies. Now, back to the matter at hand. Reports from around October 2024 revealed just how intense the pressure has become on Trump's inner circle. The grand jury investigation, led by Special Counsel Jack Smith, has been methodically building a case that goes far beyond just taking a few boxes of papers. They've obtained surveillance footage from Mar-a-Lago showing the movement of document boxes. They've interviewed dozens of witnesses, including former White House staff, Secret Service agents, and Mar-a-Lago employees. They've secured testimony from Trump's own lawyers who were allegedly asked to help hide documents from federal investigators. Federal prosecutors subpoenaed Ivanka Trump for her testimony and even went as far as to say her presence before the grand jury is essential to their investigation. Talk about strong words. They're not asking politely if she might have a few minutes to chat. They're compelling her appearance under the full weight of federal law. Essentially, prosecutors are making it crystal clear that they believe Ivanka has firsthand knowledge of potential crimes, and they're not going to let family loyalty stand in the way of getting to the truth. And this wasn't a private, quiet legal maneuver. The subpoena was reported by major outlets including CNN, MSNBC, and CBS News, making it clear that prosecutors are serious about getting Ivanka's testimony and they don't care about the political or family fallout. This announcement sent shockwaves through Trump's legal team and his political allies because it raised all sorts of questions about just how much evidence prosecutors have already gathered. If Special Counsel Jack Smith, a hard-nosed prosecutor with a track record of taking down public corruption, is willing to subpoena the former president's own daughter, what does that mean for everyone else in Trump's orbit who might be trying to avoid testifying? Now, this isn't the first time we've seen family members get caught up in investigations surrounding Trump. Special Counsel Robert Mueller's Russia investigation looked into Donald Trump Jr.'s role in the Trump Tower meeting with Russian operatives. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office investigated the Trump Organization and put pressure on Alan Weisselberg, the company's CFO, who was like family to the Trumps. New York Attorney General Letitia James deposed both Ivanka and Donald Trump Jr. in her civil fraud investigation into the Trump Organization's business practices. Just think about how prosecutors pressured Michael Cohen, Trump's former personal lawyer and fixer who was once so loyal he said he'd take a bullet for Trump. Cohen ended up cooperating with federal investigators and serving prison time for campaign finance violations and other crimes committed at Trump's direction. He testified before Congress that Trump was a con man and a cheat. The man who once said family loyalty was everything turned on Trump when facing serious prison time. Then there was Paul Manafort, Trump's former campaign chairman, who was initially loyal during the Russia investigation, but ultimately got convicted on multiple felony counts, including tax fraud and bank fraud. Trump eventually pardoned him, but only after Manafort had spent time in federal prison and suffered tremendous personal and financial damage. And let's not forget how Trump threw his own Vice President Mike Pence under the bus after Pence refused to go along with the scheme to overturn the 2020 election results. Pence had been the most loyal soldier imaginable for 4 years, defending every Trump controversy, standing by during every scandal. But the moment Pence wouldn't break the law to keep Trump in power, Trump turned a mob of angry supporters against him on January 6th. Pence had to be evacuated by Secret Service while rioters chanted, "Hang Mike Pence," outside the Capitol. Even Attorney General Bill Barr faced a similar fate when he refused to claim the 2020 election was stolen. Barr had been one of Trump's most aggressive defenders, even intervening in cases to benefit Trump's allies. But when he told the truth that there was no widespread election fraud, Trump turned on him viciously and forced him out. Now, it looks like Ivanka Trump is in the hot seat, facing the same impossible choice that has destroyed the careers and lives of so many others who got too close to Donald Trump. This pattern is becoming all too familiar. You can show all the loyalty in the world and defend Trump every single day, but the moment you step out of line or become a legal liability, he'll cut you loose without a second thought. The question now is whether Ivanka will choose truth and legal safety over family loyalty, or whether she'll risk perjury charges to protect her father. So, what did Ivanka do to end up in prosecutors' crosshairs? Well, it all boils down to what she witnessed during those chaotic final weeks of the Trump administration and the months that followed at Mar-a-Lago. The impasse happened because Trump wanted to keep boxes of documents that he believed were his personal property, while the National Archives and federal investigators were trying to recover classified materials that legally belonged to the government. Multiple news reports indicate that over 15 boxes of materials were initially returned to the National Archives in early 2022, but federal investigators believed many more classified documents remained at Mar-a-Lago. Ultimately, an FBI search had to be executed in August 2022 since Trump was unwilling to comply fully with federal subpoenas demanding the return of all classified materials. As one of the most senior White House advisors during the transition period, Ivanka was present for key conversations about what could and couldn't be taken from the White House. She reportedly raised questions about the proper handling of presidential records. Her legal team has maintained that she wasn't involved in the packing process or the storage of materials at Mar-a-Lago, trying to create distance between her and the criminal investigation. At first, Trump seemed to be on board with the idea that Ivanka could claim she had limited knowledge of the documents issue. He appreciates family loyalty and the notion of maintaining a united front against prosecutors. Trump's legal strategy has often relied on everyone sticking to the same story and refusing to cooperate with investigators. But as the federal investigation dragged into its second year, some serious problems started cropping up. FBI agents executed a search warrant at Mar-a-Lago and discovered over 100 classified documents, including some marked top secret and containing intelligence so sensitive that even discussing it in unsecure locations could endanger national security. Prosecutors obtained evidence showing that Trump and his associates allegedly moved boxes to hide them from Trump's own lawyer, who was trying to comply with a subpoena. Text messages and witness testimony suggested a deliberate effort to obstruct the federal investigation, while Trump maintained his position of total defiance, insisting he did nothing wrong and the documents were declassified by his mere thinking about it. The public began to shift their understanding of the severity of the situation. Polls conducted by YouGov and other organizations indicated that a majority of Americans believed Trump had acted improperly in taking classified documents and that he should be held accountable if he broke the law. This was the moment prosecutors began to apply serious pressure on Trump's inner circle. You see, Special Counsel Jack Smith values building airtight cases, securing cooperating witnesses, and overall getting to the truth no matter who it embarrasses or implicates. He doesn't want to bring charges that could fall apart at trial because of insufficient evidence or unsympathetic witnesses. That's definitely not the legal victory he seeks. And then Ivanka went ahead and made a move that, according to her legal advisors, was the only sensible path forward given the legal exposure she faced. She started looking for ways to protect herself legally and figured she should retain her own criminal defense attorneys separate from her father's legal team. She even considered the possibility that she might need to provide testimony that didn't perfectly align with her father's version of events. But then, when Trump caught wind of his daughter lawyering up separately and potentially considering cooperation with prosecutors, he absolutely lost it. In Trump's eyes, hiring separate counsel is just a sign that you're preparing to flip. Any family member who dares to put their own legal interests ahead of defending him is instantly labeled a traitor to the family. Now, this left Ivanka in a terrible position. On one side, she really needs her father's continued support to maintain her standing in Republican circles and her business relationships that depend on Trump's political brand. The MAGA base will drop her like a hot potato if Trump gives the signal that she's disloyal. Her entire post-White House business strategy relies on maintaining credibility with the very people who worship her father. On the flip side, she actually has to protect herself from potential criminal liability. That means figuring out how to navigate a federal grand jury subpoena, provide truthful testimony without incriminating herself, and avoid the very real possibility of perjury charges if she lies to protect Trump. The tricky part is all of that requires some level of cooperation with prosecutors and willingness to tell the complete truth even if it damages her father's legal defense. So Ivanka is caught in a bind. She can either keep trying to please her father, which means stonewalling prosecutors, or providing testimony that minimizes his wrongdoing, and that only makes her vulnerable to obstruction of justice charges and paints her as complicit in potential crimes. Or she can do what any rational person facing federal prosecution would do, which means tell the truth, protect herself legally, and let her father's defense team deal with the consequences. But that'll definitely make Trump turn against her and potentially destroy her relationship with him forever. It's a crushing situation, and that's the mess Trump creates for everyone close to him. He demands complete loyalty and wants them to stand firm without budging. But then he points fingers when the legal walls start closing in. He's not shy about tossing people under the bus whenever it suits him, as we've seen time and time again with former allies. This whole scenario is causing major fractures within the Trump family itself. If Trump has turned on political allies and employees who disappointed him, every family member is left wondering if they could be next if they don't demonstrate absolute loyalty. The more moderate voices in the family who have tried to balance maintaining their own reputations while supporting Trump are now worried sick about being the next ones to face criminal liability. Ivanka has spent years trying to cultivate an image as a legitimate businesswoman and policy advocate separate from her father's most controversial positions. She notably stepped back from politics after the January 6th Capitol riot and said she was done with Washington. Meanwhile, the die-hard Trump loyalists like Donald Trump Jr. believe anyone who cooperates with prosecutors isn't sufficiently committed to the family, and that even considering separate legal representation shows weakness. Don Trump Jr. has been vocal on social media attacking anyone he perceives as disloyal to his father, including former administration officials who have testified truthfully about what they witnessed. Things became even more tense when reports emerged that Jared Kushner, Ivanka's husband, and another former senior White House advisor had also been contacted by federal investigators. Kushner, who served as a key foreign policy advisor and had his own extensive access to classified intelligence, represents another potential witness who could provide damaging testimony about Trump's handling of sensitive national security information. When someone as closely tied to Trump as Kushner starts getting pulled into the investigation, you know the legal jeopardy has reached a critical level. Kushner's testimony could corroborate what Ivanka tells investigators, or it could create inconsistencies that prosecutors would exploit. Either way, the family is facing unprecedented legal pressure from multiple directions. Special Counsel Jack Smith's office has made it clear they're not backing down. According to court filings reported by Politico in late 2024, prosecutors argued that Ivanka Trump's testimony is material to their investigation and that no claim of privilege can shield her from having to answer questions about potential crimes. The legal filing stated that Ivanka was present during key conversations about presidential records, had direct knowledge of how documents were handled during the transition, and may have witnessed discussions about responding to federal subpoenas. Federal prosecutors pointed out that executive privilege doesn't apply to conversations about potential criminal activity, and spousal privilege wouldn't protect Jared Kushner's communications if they were in furtherance of potential crimes. These are not casual legal arguments. These are aggressive prosecutorial positions designed to eliminate any legal excuse for refusing to testify. The legal process moved quickly once the subpoena was issued. The grand jury scheduled Ivanka's appearance for early 2025, recognizing the urgency of obtaining her testimony before potential charges are brought. After all, every day this investigation continues means more time for witnesses to coordinate their stories or for evidence to potentially disappear. And let me tell you, the implications of Ivanka being compelled to testify are massive. Legal analysts across the political spectrum have noted that prosecutors typically don't subpoena the children of investigative targets unless they have strong evidence that the testimony will be incriminating and necessary for their case. This isn't a fishing expedition. This is targeted prosecution based on specific evidence that Ivanka has crucial information. Andrew McCarthy, a former federal prosecutor and conservative legal commentator who has often defended Trump in the past, went on Fox News and made a statement that really should catch everyone's attention. He said that when prosecutors start compelling testimony from family members, it usually means they believe they have a strong case and need that testimony to fill in critical gaps or prove criminal intent. Just think about that for a moment. This is coming from someone who has been sympathetic to Trump's legal arguments in the past, not some liberal prosecutor with an axe to grind. And this is coming from Fox News, the network that has been Trump's most reliable defender. Barbara McQuaid, a former U.S. attorney and current law professor, mentioned that family loyalty often crumbles when individuals face their own potential criminal charges. She noted that prosecutors have successfully used the pressure of potential prosecution to flip family members in organized crime cases, public corruption investigations, and white-collar fraud prosecutions. When legal experts from different ideological perspectives start using terms like organized crime tactics and public corruption, that's the moment to really pay attention. So, let's break down what this development could mean, because it's not just a captivating legal drama. It has serious consequences for how our criminal justice system handles presidential accountability and whether anyone, regardless of their last name or political power, is truly above the law. First up is the immediate political fallout. Trump is already facing significant legal challenges due to multiple criminal indictments in different jurisdictions, and his approval ratings among independent voters have been declining. Republican primary voters remain largely loyal, but general election voters are increasingly concerned about Trump's legal problems and what they mean for his ability to govern if reelected. The image of Ivanka Trump being forced to testify against her own father in a federal criminal investigation is politically devastating. It reinforces the narrative that Trump's actions were so serious that even his own daughter can't protect him from legal accountability. And honestly, that's not the best look for someone trying to convince voters he should return to the White House. Most Americans have a good deal of respect for family loyalty as a fundamental value, even if they don't always agree with the Trump family's politics. Seeing a daughter placed in the impossible position of having to choose between protecting her father and avoiding perjury charges creates genuine sympathy for Ivanka, while simultaneously raising questions about what Trump did that was so bad it put his own child in legal jeopardy. Democrats are definitely planning to take advantage of this situation. They'll argue that Trump's reckless handling of classified documents was so egregious that it's now threatening to tear his own family apart, and they'll have federal court proceedings backing up those claims. This becomes Exhibit A in proving that Trump cares more about his own interests than about protecting the people closest to him, including his own daughter. You can expect to see footage of news coverage about Ivanka's grand jury testimony popping up in Democratic campaign ads, congressional speeches, and debates throughout the 2024 and 2026 election cycles. The message will be simple. Trump's actions were so reckless and potentially criminal that federal prosecutors had no choice but to subpoena his own daughter to get to the truth. Now, let's touch on what this means for the principle of equal justice under law. For decades, critics have argued that wealthy and powerful individuals face a different justice system than ordinary Americans. The Trump family has long operated with a sense that normal rules don't apply to them, that lawyers can make problems disappear, and that political power provides immunity from serious legal consequences. But by compelling Ivanka Trump to testify under oath, federal prosecutors are sending a clear message that no one is above the law. If the daughter of a former president can be subpoenaed and forced to provide testimony that might incriminate her own father, it demonstrates that the justice system is willing to pursue evidence and accountability regardless of family connections or political influence. Yet this situation also shines a massive spotlight on the constitutional principle of presidential accountability after leaving office. At the heart of the issue is whether former presidents can simply take classified documents whenever they feel like it and ignore federal subpoenas demanding their return. If Trump gets away with this behavior, it could totally change how the peaceful transfer of power operates in the United States. The presidential record system was created after Watergate specifically to prevent presidents from destroying or hiding documents that belong to the American people and are essential for historical accountability. The system assumes that presidents will follow the law even when it's inconvenient, that they'll work with the National Archives to properly preserve and protect sensitive materials, and that they'll respect the distinction between personal papers and government documents. But Trump has always been uncomfortable with those limitations. He craves total control over his narrative and hates the idea that historians and investigators might someday access documents that show his decision-making process or expose potential wrongdoing. If Trump's defiance of presidential records laws is allowed to stand, that's a significant boost to executive power that undermines governmental transparency and accountability, and it opens the door for future presidents to misuse that precedent for even more egregious violations. So, the implications of this case reach far beyond just Trump and his daughter. It's about shaping the structure of presidential accountability for many years to come. Each time Trump brushes aside norms, breaks laws, or attacks institutions designed to check presidential power, it weakens our democratic systems. It starts making behavior that used to be completely unacceptable feel normal. Think about it. If a former president can take boxes of classified national security documents to his country club, refuse to return them despite a federal subpoena, allegedly obstruct justice by hiding documents from his own lawyers, and then claim he did nothing wrong, what's to stop the next president from doing the same or worse? If family loyalty can be used as a shield against legal accountability, what's to prevent another powerful political dynasty from following that playbook? These actions don't just disappear when Trump eventually leaves the political scene. They become precedent for what future office holders think they can get away with. And that's genuinely dangerous. Democracy relies on those norms and institutions, assuming that people in power will play by the rules, even when it's inconvenient or potentially incriminating. When those norms crumble and accountability breaks down, democracy itself starts to falter. Looking ahead to the 2024 and 2026 elections, it's clear that all of this is going to have some significant effects. We're still months out from those critical contests, but the narrative being set now is bound to influence how things go. If the story playing out is one of Trump battling every institution meant to hold him accountable and his own daughter being forced to testify about his potentially criminal conduct, that spells serious trouble for Republicans trying to defend his actions. Voters usually don't reward chaos and dysfunction. They want stability and competence and leaders who respect the rule of law. Right now, Trump isn't offering any of those things. So expect Democrats to champion a message focused on restoring accountability, respecting institutions, and ensuring that no one is above the law. After years of chaos under Trump, there are voters who believe that choosing different leadership means our justice system will actually work again and hold powerful people accountable. They're promising no more constant constitutional crises or battles with prosecutors, just the basic expectation that our leaders will follow the law. That message might just hit home for a lot of voters, including some Republicans who are exhausted by the endless legal drama and want their party to move forward with candidates who aren't facing multiple criminal indictments. So here's the deal. Ivanka Trump, the polished businesswoman who spent 4 years as a senior White House advisor, is being compelled to testify before a federal grand jury about her father's handling of classified documents and potential obstruction of justice. This isn't just a family squabble or another political controversy that will blow over in a news cycle. It's a fundamental test of whether our legal system can hold even the most powerful political figures accountable when they break the law.